All right, everybody, we are live and we're talking to the Brunners, and they are our missionaries, and we're really excited to have them with us. And so, just like our other updates, we've asked our missionaries to share their salvation testimony and their call to the field, and then we'll talk about their recent prayer letters and any family news. So, guys, take it away. Why don't you let me know how you came to Jesus and how you got to the field?
Okay. Well, I know as a youngster, I grew up with the home church in Limerick Chapel, and heard the gospel, heard the Bible, and everything, and I just knew I wanted to please the Lord. And it was interesting about the time I was in junior high, they had Word of Life had basketball marathons, and you could get friends out to hear the gospel. And I did that and had friends come out to hear the gospel, and it was a Saturday. And that Saturday night, they had the youth center in Pottstown as well. And the same missionary, I say evangelist fellow would be there that night. It was Coach Lee Rock Royer, used to be coach for the Navy's football team. And he would really emphasize on John 3, being born again. And I remember I was sitting in with a group at the basketball game on the bleachers, and really hoping my friends would hear this. And that night, I'm sitting there, and he starts talking, and I started thinking, I'm not sure that I did this. And here, that was in March 3rd, 1973. So I remember 3/3/73. And I remember I was standing there thinking I needed this, and so I asked the Lord to come into my life at that time so that I could be born again. And he said, to this day, as you know, I still remember his name very clearly, and still thank him in my prayers at times for the fact that he was an evangelist. He lost his life going to an evangelistic meeting.
Wow.
And what that means to me is, if I was in that meeting instead of the other meeting, he'd have lost his life coming to share the gospel to me. And I'm thinking, you know what an incredible thing. He was giving his life and sharing the gospel for the Lord. March 3rd, 1973, I asked the Lord to be my Savior.
That's awesome.
Yeah, mine kind of has a word of life. I know you're a word of life guy. I have a little bit of a word of life. Anyway, I grew up in Collingswood, New Jersey, just right over the bridge. And when I was 3 months old, I was given to a family. My birth mother had a mental illness, and that's another whole long story, but I just see God's hand in that, in my life and my whole life, because that woman was a Christian, and she brought me up, and we regularly went to church. When I was about 9 years old, I don't have a date like Dave did, but when I was about 9 years old, I went to a children's youth rally, like a teenage youth rally, but this was for young children. And this was Uncle Robbie Robertson, who was also a word of life, like way back. I mean, he's long with the Lord, but his theme was, "Ye must be born again." And he had a little song. Dave and I still sing that sometimes. And I just very clearly remember that day, he talked to children about sin, and he talked about lying and stealing and obeying your parents. And I was so convicted of all of those things that day that is when I trusted the Lord as my Savior and asked him to take my sin away. I remember telling my mother that. And then through the years, this church had a lot of missionaries. And through hearing different missionaries, I had such a burden. And remember also telling my mother, "Mommy, someday I'm going to be a missionary." And so I went to Word of Life Bible Institute in 1978. Dave and I met there. And we both had a burden for missions. A couple years later, we were married. I'm telling part of Dave. So Dave went off on to Bob Jones University. We were married, and then to Capital Bible Seminary. And it was in seminary that we met a family who were missionaries in Italy with Biblical Ministries Worldwide. And we prayed about that and joined Biblical Ministries Worldwide in 1988, 89. And we were assigned to go to Italy and spent almost 4 years on deputation to go to Italy. We had taken language classes, we visited the country, and one day God closed that door, and we were devastated. We wept, like a lost love. And but we knew God had a place for us, and we prayed about that, and it was only a matter of months. Dave was asked to make a visit out here, And I remember it saying, what in the world's going on out there? And that's Utah and Idaho. You know, here we were going to go to Europe. We were going to minister to Italians and Catholics. And you know what? In a matter of months, we were here. You know, this is what God had for us all along. We took kind of the roundabout way, learned a lot of things. But then we were here. We came here in 1993.
Yeah. And it was just a neat thing to think back on as she was sharing things like that, because I remember it was, again, my home church, very involved with reaching out in the community, very involved with other ministries, and very involved as far as getting young people to go to Bible college. And I remember going to a Bible camp in New Jersey, and I'm there at this camp, and I remember hearing this message and thinking the Lord wants me to give him my heart to serve him. And yet my pastor at that time was there, and he was in the front, and I'm thinking, oh my, he knows me. He would know what kind of character I was. And so the evangelist that was up there that day, the speaker, said about standing up, and I thought, well, I can do that. And then he said, or actually first was raising the hand, and then when he said, those of you that raise your hand, stand up, and he said, I'll pray for you. And then he said, those of you that have stood up, I'm asking you to come forward and, you know, make that commitment to the Lord. I'm thinking, okay, I can come forward. And of all things, he said, pastors that are here, if you see somebody from your church come up and you can greet them and you can pray with them. And of all things, I'm thinking, I know, I got to see my pastor. He's going to know me too well. And we get up, and he was actually smiling. And I'm thinking, oh boy, he is glad that I'm doing this. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to forget that was the night at a camp that I made. And I'm not sure that year, as far as, I think it was a junior or senior year in high school, that I heard that, and I really felt that I should make the decision. But it was at Word of Life that, as she mentioned, we really started getting to hear a little bit more about missions, and really getting convinced, in a sense, not just ministry, but that the Lord would have me reach out and go into a different area. And I remember a fellow sharing from the Southern Islands about children coming, and I'm thinking, oh my, if we could just get people like that, and we could get kids coming to hear the gospel. And I remember at that time also kind of confirming a decision. But she mentioned, here I go to Bob Jones then after Word of Life, and then I was at Capital Bible Seminary, and when we met those missionaries, it was really neat to hear one missionary particularly sharing what was going on in missions and saying the Lord can use us. And it was like the Lord saying, yes, I want to use you. I don't want you to be doing what you want. I want you to be serving me. And at that time, committing our lives to the Lord. And like she said, at that time, really convinced, thinking we were headed to Europe. And we've even, not only were in Italy, but we also visited Luxembourg and ministry there. And when it was like this stopped, or, you know, in our minds, it's like, what happened here? And I remember asking Dr. Jimka with our ministry, saying, what do we do? What do I do now? And he said, have you considered Utah and Idaho? And like she said, I get out here and I start looking, and I start realizing, you know what, in the United States, this is an area that needs to be reached. And I get back and told her, and she and I both were convinced, even more so, that this could be the place that God could use us. And yes, 93 is when we came out here, and we've been serving out here in Utah and Idaho since.
So this is something, because you guys are one of the few that share that pivot from Italy to Idaho. And it reminds me of Paul, you know, when he's in Bithynia and he wants to keep going one direction.
Yeah.
And, you know, it took a Macedonian call for him to stop and go go the way that he was supposed to go. What was the convincing factor that you guys thought Italy or Europe was where you were going? And then what did that pivot look like? And then what convinced you about Idaho?
Well, I remember missionaries sharing the ministry in Italy.
Yeah.
And I think it was just the idea of how they shared it that it really got a hold of our hearts.
Yeah.
That God was reaching people out there, and that maybe we could be a part of that, and just could reach people in the area of Italy. And so actually I started at that point myself, going and doing a whole lot more history and geography and things like that on Italy, and pulling up things like that and really studying it and saying, oh, so that's what we can do. So we could possibly be here and possibly be there. And so we actually visited a couple places out there, and it was kind of interesting going into the areas of Venice and a few others, but in essence, then seeing what was going on and really wanting to be out there and everything. When this, it was one of those times when we came back and we heard that that this would not be an option for us. And we heard that at home. It was like, oh my! And what do we do? Here we are on missions. He said a mission support group with our church. We're reaching out in other places going as far as missionaries. We really want to serve the Lord in missions. And that's, like I said, that's when I called and I asked Dr. Jeffcott then, what do we do? And he explained about this area. And I came out then and met with Brother Ransom that was here. And I remember just traveling to a couple different areas with him. And one of the areas was Blackfoot, where we are now, and one of the areas being Richfield and Cedar City that I saw, and it was so much that was so neat that where we were actually in a sense asked, would you come out here? And you know what we said? Hey, the Lord would have us come out. We want to come out. And then it was like the Lord opened the door, and the Lord, in a sense, I guess you say, in a special way, convinced the leaders in our home church to encourage us to do this and to say, you know, this is what we feel the Lord is having you do. And became convinced in our hearts and prayed to the Lord and said, you know what, if that's what we'd have you do, let us go out. And like you said, within a couple of months, then we were moving and we were already getting started then and reaching out to those people that, how do you say, could talk about the Bible, could talk about Jesus, and yet needed to have Jesus as their Savior.
Yeah, I think about, it's just like it is like Paul's call. It took God through a vision telling him, please come help us. You know, instead of Paul saying, I want to go this way, you know, it's good. God saying, no, we're going to need you to go over this way. And then just like, and it's good for everybody to hear that, because sometimes I think people feel like a burden is a call, and that's not the same thing. A call requires a burden. It requires being biblically qualified, and it does require the counsel of godly people in your life. And so you guys had the trifecta to go out to Idaho, and so that's the way to do it. So when you guys got to the field, were you working with other missionaries, or was this like a parachute drop that it was just you guys there? Like how did, like when you first got on the field, who was there?
Well, interestingly enough, when we first got here, the plan was to be in Blackfoot, but we had one missionary family, Ron and Wanda Thompson, that were having a deputation time in the summer. And so they asked if we'd be willing to go down there and be involved with that church in Cedar City. And I said, you know what, we'd be willing to do that. I said, because we're new out here, we don't know much about what's going on. In fact, it was at that time that I picked up a book. One of them, I have several books right here, but it was Mormonism, Mama and Me. And anyway, what I did, I spent the summer not only trying to evangelize there, but reading up on that and asking different ones to say what really does help us in witnessing out here. And then it was the idea we came up, and by the end of the summer, then we were in Blackfoot. We were with, interestingly enough, Dr. Bob Jeffcott's son, Clint Jeffcott, that was up here, and his wife and their family. So we were up with a family that knew our ministry well, as far as the overall ministry, with their dad being involved so much, but also people that were involved in this area and knew this area so much. And we just really felt blessed and encouraged on that. And after being in Blackfoot a little bit, we were in Richfield with Dominic and Nino. And so we were down there with them. And then we were up in Bear Lake. And that was the first time in Bear Lake when we were more so by ourselves, as far as when the missionary family there. But the first couple places we were working with somebody. So it was helpful for us, for having those that had been involved in ministry in this area to know how to reach out.
Sure. Yeah, it's always good. We've had several friends of mine, like when I was right before I came to Calvary, and you guys like I think visited like I think within a few months of me first getting here, when you guys were here last, and you know, we went from planting churches in New York and coming here. I remember that there was this big difference between you going by yourself and then working with others. And you know, if I had to do everything all over again, I would have pushed harder to work under someone else instead of because they thought I had the bona fides because I'm from New York and I'm Hispanic. And you know, that's you need people who are on the ground and have been there a while. And so, you know, to have that backing when you first get going it's not just mutual encouragement. It's the smart way to do it, you know, because
Yes.
people know the culture. Even though we're in the United States of America, it doesn't matter. That's a very different culture for where you guys are from.
Yes, it is.
So statistically, so Utah obviously is probably that it still is the biggest concentration of Mormons, right? In Utah, that would be
Utah and this area here, with where we are right now, we are within 3 hours of Salt Lake City, so we're still in a highly LDS Mormon area, and even a couple of hours north of us are colleges that are very, very intensely involved with those who are from Mormon backgrounds.
Wow. Okay.
But Utah really is probably the strongest out of all the areas as far as for Mormonism.
Gotcha. And so with this virus striking everybody, what does it look like in Idaho as far as ministry changing? Did it change much? Like how does like are you guys more of a closed state like we were, or was it more free from the very beginning, or how was it in Idaho?
It was a little bit, I say, trying to be closed.
Not as much.
But not as much, yeah.
No, in fact, we've had in-church services for a month,
Wow.
5-6 weeks. Yeah. Our children's Bible club, we did Zoom there for a while, and then we were able to meet back at the church with them and just have them sit far apart. But we are not nearly, because we have a lot of family there where you live, we're very familiar with what's going on, and we are not nearly as closed as back there. Yeah, everything's open here, restaurants and that.
So the timing when it was trending more closed, did you guys have to do virtual services at all and have to do all that, or was it okay? You had some of that too.
Yes. As a matter of fact, one of the kind of interestingly, almost I say funny type of things is a new family that came out and was thanking us for allowing them to be a part and for accepting them in this small group and everything. They said they don't see that normally. They're thanking us for that. Then we mentioned about being on the internet, and that family was the one that initially helped us get started on doing it on Zoom. And that family actually helped us. The fellow that's in that family actually helped us recently replace a pump on our clothes washer. Wow. And actually helped us get a toilet in place. Actually, most of the work of putting a toilet in place that we had to replace. And he, can you imagine? He's thanking me that I break things because then he gets a chance to come over. You can imagine what I'm telling him. I am just thankful that you're coming over, and if this makes an opportunity, I said I'm glad for the opportunity that you come over so we can share in the Lord too.
Amen.
But his family's been involved, and he has a little girl. If you can imagine, there's a young lady that this little girl really likes being with. She likes coming over and being with Andrea for not only Bible studies, but now has asked Andrea when they can come over again for a dinner and things like that. And that's the newest family, a small family, but a new one. But they were the ones that actually did help us initially get set up with the Zoom. And then what we were doing, and actually still have done a little bit, was set that up at church so that those who could not or did not feel like they should be out because of being on the road, we have a family that does traveling, doing some trucking, and so they're not always feeling like they should be out, but they can still see us then on the internet.
Good.
And so we still do a little bit of that yet, but we do meet together as far as church.
Awesome. That's great. We're envious.
I'm sure.
I think Limerick Chapel's starting this Sunday, I think, and then we're starting. The 14th. We're starting on the 21st. So it's starting to open up a little bit here, but I've been hearing from all of our ministry partners and mission partners that it's just changed the landscape of how we think about things. And for us, it's been understanding and being able to reinforce the fact that church is not a building, it's people. And so,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that's been very helpful for us. So on your last the prayer letter that we just got, you know, just looking at some things that have been happening with just the people in general. And I was reading about Jay, your mailman, who lost his father, and then Tom, just a few people there. There's been a lot of loss, and you guys have been able to minister probably in a way that some other people can't, because you guys have experienced loss. And so, you know, I guess the anniversary of your son going home to be with the Lord was yesterday, or is that
Yes.
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 yesterday? Okay,
Yes.
and then that was 16
Yes.
years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
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 So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
The Lord gives a lot of opportunities to share with people. You know,
yeah,
we're thankful for that. You
yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's
Oh, did we?
not everybody understands that the power of empathy, you know, and to be able to be in someone's shoes, not just have sympathy, but you know, understand that is just it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
guys, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate you meeting with us.